Hello everyone, my name is Samuel. Welcome to this tutorial about Maya 2016, and it's really just a quick overview of the basic interface and some options. So the three main things I'll be talking about today, it's the panel view options, and I will be looking at the mesh view options. The mesh, which is the object that we can create, such as a polygon. This is a mesh, so this mesh view is different views. And lastly, we'll be looking at some selection tool options. So let's get started. So first, yes, we have a polygon here, and let's look at some panel view options. So this is a panel. Basically, it helps us to look at the screen. So if you press spacebar, it would open up 4 different views. So top, front, and side. And if you just move your mouse over to whichever panel and hit spacebar again, it would extend that to the full view. Or if you hold spacebar and click on the center Maya, you can just change to the left view like that. So don't mind the bottom, that's just the keystroke. And so you can do that again, or you can do over here, panels, perspective, go perspective, and you're back here. So that's that. And to adjust the view, you could hold Alt and drag your mouse, and it would rotate the view so you can have a more 360 view. And you can also hold Alt and your mouse, so middle mouse click, it will adjust the camera. So that's what you could do to adjust and so move to the right place. So that's the panel. And you could, if you look over here on the left, so by clicking this, we are back at the full screen. By clicking the following one, it splits to the full screen, just like spacebar, it's the same. And if you look at here, if you click this, that shows up the outline. So as we create more and more polygons, we create more random shapes, it would create, each object has listed, so it's like an outline, outlining each mesh or object that we have. So we can find out which one we want over here. So for me, I just want to do that, so just going to delete those. Alright, and so you may be wondering, let's go back to full screen. What if I want a 2 side-by-side view rather than the usual 4 that we have? So let's come over here, panels. If you go layout, you could see you can have 2 panels side by side, stack, which is top and bottom, and so on and so on. So you can experiment, explore, but this allows you to create. And if you want this to be whichever one, you can either come to panels and set it to the automatic. You can set whichever you want here, or you can just like drag your mouse over the panel, hold spacebar, and then hold this, and then you can select. Now you're at the top view. So that's something you can do. You can navigate around the panel. And now, so that's basically it. You don't have to worry about the rest, just the top 3 will do for now. And so let's go back to the perspective, the default. And so we've known about some panel options. So now let's take a look at some mesh viewing options. So if you highlight this, mesh, okay, if you were to press number 2 on your keypad, notice that it would create this shape. Oh, and by the way, you can zoom in and out by scrolling your middle mouse, so that zooms in and out. Alright, so if you press 2, it creates a smoothen view of what your mesh could be. And press 3, it shows the smoothen view, but without the original cylinder wireframe. And if you press 1, it just brings back to the actual mesh that you have right now. So I hope this is not confusing. This does not actually smoothen it. It's actually a preview of what it would look like. So it's a good tool to have to sort of like model your mesh first, and then have the preview, and when you're near your final stage, you just smoothen it. The reason they have this is because smoothen would create a lot more faces, a lot more vertices, and that would increase your poly count, which makes it a bit more heavy to render. So they allow this preview to just allow our computer to be more efficient in that sense. So the next thing, okay, if you have a look here, over here, so pressing 5 would show this mesh. Pressing 6, if you look here, is highlighted. it's the texture view. So towards the end, when we've attached any texture, it shows like a rough preview of what it looks like with texture. So that's number 6. Number 7, it will show how the lights affect the mesh. It gives a general idea, but it's not super accurate. For the most accurate, make sure you go back to render out. So that's that. And if you click 5, it goes back to the original view without any texture or lights. And if you have a look here, so it's 1, 2 icons away from the number 5 mesh view. If you click on this, you notice that on top of the mesh, it has the wireframe. So this is important for one of the submission to show the wireframe. And if you were to unclick this, then we can see the mesh without the wireframe. So that could be useful when you're modeling certain things and so on. So that is that. You can view that in terms of your mesh viewing options. So now let's go to some selection tool. And you could see, you can select the mesh, and if you were to press F9, you're in the vertices mode. And here we can select individual vertices and we can manipulate the vertices. You know, W likewise is the move tool, E is the rotation tool, you know, rotate, or R is the scale tool, so we can manipulate individual vertices. So that's F9. You press F10, you would see it's the edges. Oops, sorry. And you can manipulate, move the edges. So that's F10. F11 will bring out faces. So you can select multiple faces and you can we can adjust it. So that's roughly the selection tool. So if you press F8, it goes back to the full object mode. And if you press F7, it gives you a multiple selection, so you can select both the vertices, edges, and faces all at the same time. So it could be a bit tricky, so just need to make sure you know what you're doing or why you're selecting it. Another way we can have a look at the different selection tools, it's let's say if you don't have any access to the function keys, so you can select your object, you right click, and you can go vertices, edge, faces, multi or object mode as well. So let's go edges, and so we can select that as well. So that is one option. So you have that, and let's have a look right over here. And this is the select tool. So sometimes you may be in different tools, and you know, clicking this will bring you back to the default select view. And right now it's in faces. So let's click F8, back to object mode. So there's shortcuts for all of this. This is Q. Q is back to object mode. W, which is here, the move tool, and E is the rotate tool, and R is the scale tool. So that's move, rotate, and scale. And this is the last use tool. So when we looked at, when we're editing mesh and we're doing some things over here, that tool will be displayed over here. So that's that. And if you notice this too, it's an interesting selection tool. So right now, let's say we go into vertices selection mode, and we have this lasso tool. What we could do, we could actually drag around and sort of create a shape, and it would select that vertices. So it's a bit like Photoshop, lasso tool and selection. So you can do that, and you can do the same for edges as well. Just need to select the entire edge. Usually it works best with vertices. And here is the paint selection tool, and we could actually paint over which we want to select. And if you hit Control, it deselects what you do not want to select. And that is usually great when we're selecting faces. So if you see, we could immediately select all these faces right at once, rather than individually and pressing shift and one by one. So paint tool allows you to select that whole area really quickly. Just need to make sure you're selecting the right area and checking you didn't accidentally select anything else. So that's that, a rough selection tool guide that you could look into. Alright, so now the question is, what if we want to adjust the size of the diameter of the paint? So if you come over to the top left here on this little dotted thing here, so you just right click, turn on tools setting, and just, if you could be in other tools, but you just double click on the paint tool and it would ensure you're in paint tool mode. And here you could change the radius. So I think by default it was 1, so it's huge. So right now you can right click 0.3, so right now it's really small. So you could do that. So that's, I just selected paint, selected the edge. So that's that. If you have any questions, just drop your command, or you can just email me. Thank you for your time.